So if the buyer has a preferred processor who will transfer the title to him or her, then I will also ask the processor to be present during closing so we can immediately turn over the documents needed for the transfer of title. So if you don't have a processor, by the way, for those who are not familiar, a processor, documents processor, is the one who transfers the title from the seller to the buyer. Hey guys, Alex here. Welcome back to my channel. First of all, before I begin this vlog, let me just say I am so happy to be back because I haven't actually been able to vlog for the last 2 months because in September we got infected with COVID. So we couldn't do anything for the past 2 weeks, and then after that we transferred to our new house here in Xavier Estates. So we had to fix up the house, and then the whole process of moving in, everything's so time consuming. So I wasn't able to vlog for the last 2 months. And just today, my husband finished setting up my new home studio, new vlogging area. So we just used the same decor and stuff that I was using in our last house in my previous vlogging area. So anyway, that's it for now, and let me dive into the vlog. Today, I'll be sharing with you the deal closing process for brokerage in the Philippines, plus the documents you will need to prepare. So closing is the last step in the sales process, and it's a very important step. And as the broker, you need to make sure that you have everything prepared to ensure a smooth transaction on closing date. So there are 4 steps in the deal closing process. Step 1 is due diligence. So I have a whole vlog dedicated on how to do due diligence, and I'll put the card up so you can watch it. But for this video, I'll give you a summary as it's the first step to closing. So the purpose of doing due diligence is to make sure that the title is clean and all payments are updated. To do your due diligence, you will need to get the following documents. First is a certified true copy at the Registry of Deeds. And then second are certified true copies from City Hall. So first is certified true copy of the tax declaration for the building if it's a house and lot, certified true copy of the tax deck for the lot only, certificate of latest and existing, certificate of no improvements if it's a lot only, and tax clearance. So all these documents can be requested for at City Hall. And the next is the Homeowners Association clearance or receipts, updated receipt of utilities for house and lots or condos. So to get a certified true copy of the title and tax declaration, you will need one valid ID of the seller as well as an authorization letter allowing you to request for these documents on the seller's behalf. So this new policy was implemented just this year. Prior to this, you could just request for a CDC directly without needing to show an authorization letter. As for the fees, for the title, it depends on how many pages the title contains. So if it's only 2 pages, the fee for the certified true copy of title should only be around 200 plus pesos. For titles of properties located inside subdivisions, because the deed of restrictions of the subdivision is attached to the title, so usually the fee for this would be around 400 to 500. So it really depends on how many pages the title has. As for the documents to be requested from City Hall, it's just around 120 pesos. And then step 2, prepare closing documents. Preparation of closing documents is mainly the responsibility of the attorney who will notarize the deed of sale. But as the broker, you will need to facilitate this process and to make sure you're on top of things. It is also the broker's responsibility to provide the attorney with all the necessary documents so that he or she can make the closing docs. So closing docs to prepare. First is contract to sell. So this is for installment purchase or for bank financing. And then the deed of sale and the acknowledgement receipt. So this is for the payment by the buyer to the seller. And then 2 valid IDs of both buyer and seller. SPA to sell. If seller is based abroad, it needs to be consularized. If based in the Philippines, it can be notarized. Then SPA to buy if the buyer is not in the city, or if it's only the representative representing the buyer. Verified TIN. Make sure to verify the TIN for both buyer and seller to make sure there are no snags in the title transfer process. And then payment. Buyer will also need to prepare the payment in the form of manager's check, which is good as cash. Now, TIN stands for Tax Identification Number. So it's a unique set of numbers assigned to each registered taxpayer in the Philippines. Foreigners don't have a TIN. And you need this every time you transact with BIR. So this is why your TIN is needed every time you buy or sell property in the Philippines. So each Filipino can only have one TIN. So it's important to keep a record of your TIN. One time, I wasn't able to verify the seller's TIN in advance. And when the documents were forwarded to BIR for title transfer, we found out that the seller's name in the BIR, in the records of BIR, got misspelled. So now this problem can be solved, but it took a lot of time to do so because my client had applied for her TIN in Manila. So it had to be changed there. We had to contact someone in Manila to do it. So the title transfer got delayed for a year. So that's why now, whenever I close deals, I make sure to get the TIN of both parties verified first prior to closing. So in this step, once all documents have been prepared by the attorney, then I send it to my client so they can check. It's critical to get all the data right, such as the title number, spelling of the names. We can't have any errors in the deed of sale because corrections are forbidden. There are no corrections allowed in the documents to be submitted to the Registry of Deeds. And then step 3, set a closing schedule. Once due diligence has been completed and all the documents have been approved by both parties, like the buyer and the seller, then we can schedule a closing date. So there are 3 parties that the broker needs to coordinate with for closing: the buyer, the seller, and the attorney. So if the buyer has a preferred processor who will transfer the title to him or her, then I will also ask the processor to be present during closing so we can immediately turn over the documents needed for the transfer of title. So if you don't have a processor, by the way, for those who are not familiar, a processor, documents processor, is the one who transfers the title from the seller to the buyer. If you don't have a processor, then I can also recommend someone who can do it for you. And then the last step, step number 4, is to close. So that's the final step to finally close the deal. We usually do it at the attorney's office or at the bank. So in this final step, all the documents are now ready for signing. So documents that needs to be prepared for closing on the attorney's side, contract to sell if applicable, and then of course the deed of sale. And then for the buyer side, the buyer will need to prepare a manager's check, which is good as cash. Now, for some buyers, they prefer to pay in cash, but I usually don't recommend it because it takes so much time for the bank to count the bills so that the seller can deposit it. So it usually takes like 2 hours or sometimes 3-4 hours. So better to prepare a manager's check since, as I mentioned, it's good as cash. The moment that it is issued to the payee, the funds will be immediately deducted from the buyer's account. And then again, SPA to buy if applicable, if the buyer is not here. And for the seller, SPA to sell if the seller is not present. And of course, the seller needs to bring the original title. Now for the broker will need to prepare a certified true copy of the title, certified true copy of the tax declaration for the building if it's a house and lot, certified true copy of the tax debt for the lot, certificate of latest and existing, certificate of no improvement for lot only, tax clearance, homeowners association clearance or receipts, and updated receipts of utilities for house and lots or condo properties. And then the TIN verification slip of both the buyer and the seller, and acknowledgement receipt for all the documents that will be turned over to the buyer. And that's it for the deal closing process. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to be updated of my latest vlogs. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye!